And good morning. Happy October 29th, 2022. If you can hear me, let me know over in the comments. Good morning, CH, David, Sean, Prav, and Dave. Good morning. Let me know if you can hear me. If you need IT consulting, hop over to williehowe.com, click Hire Us, or the Contact Us form, fill that information out, and someone will be in touch with you as soon as possible. We are going to talk about routers today. Can everybody hear me? Give me a thumbs up. Let me know if you can hear me. All right, everybody says they can hear me. Good morning, Gibby. After dark. Good morning. So you saw the title. Morning, TVJ, Technology Viking, Christopher, Jacob. Good morning, everyone. I'm glad you're here. 21 of you so far, only 4 likes. Hit that thumbs up button. Let the algorithm know that you appreciate the content. So the title this morning was Router Saturday, right? So what are we going to talk about on Router Saturday? So many routers. I've got so many routers, and I tossed around the video, or I tossed around the idea of how many routers can we have in a row? How much NAT can we have before things just blow up, right? And I think somebody guessed 11 routers. Somebody else guessed, I don't know. I got to take account of all the routers that I have, and I got to figure out how to plug a bunch of them in. Because I think that's a really fun video that we're going to do when it gets cold and crappy outside and we're done doing stuff. Video content should start picking up because the weather it's getting, dark at 5:30 and the weather is starting to cool off. So, hey, Hamptons, good morning. Brian, Murray, Sistak, Rich, Jordan, Gregory, Ryan, good morning. Yes, Natception, that's what we'll call it. Good morning, Oret from Jamaica. And we're going to do some training in December. If you saw my last video, After Dark, a lot of the routers now, they detect what the WAN IP is and they'll adjust the LAN IP. So we'll have like an edge router at the top and then everything else will chain behind it and we'll see what happens. But here's the thing, right? After Dark brings up a good point. If they're in the same subnet, no, it will not work. You cannot have the same subnet on your WAN and your LAN. It messes with NAT, it messes with Masquerade, it messes with routing rules, all kinds of stuff. Hey, Joe, glad you're here. Gibby says, got the new GS7052 router, going to replace my MikroTik this weekend for testing. Well, and Joe, this one's for you. It's funny that you say that because that's one of the routers that I've got right here. I've got to get a dedicated video out. Like I said, the video frequency is going to pick up as a content creator, or as people. If any of you are aspiring content creators, you want to be a content creator, you want to be an influencer. Let me tell you a couple of the things that nobody really talks about. There are some of the other creators that kind of go after it with a little snark, and maybe 4 or 5 years ago I would have done that, but now, I don't know. It just makes me think more about people and more about internet experts and things like that. But to be honest with you, I've really been enjoying spending time with my family. I've been able to spend more time with my family this year than I have in the last couple of years. And I recently been really busy working on some big projects. But, the thing is, like, everybody that is on the internet that makes comments, people email you, and at some point, I'll be honest with you, sometimes I get video paralysis, right? So I've got this equipment here, then somebody else releases a video, and I get this video paralysis where I get this overwhelming anxiety about the video and about what people are going to think and I'm also trying to figure out how to curb that. So at some point, I think you just got to go full send and not care, but it does. Anybody who's a content creator tells you should be able to tell you that after a certain amount of comments, after a certain amount of interaction, sometimes the stuff, it gets you and it wears you down. So I'm working on that as well, because I'm still doing lots of great things in my lab. In fact, we're doing so many great things. I blew up a GFCI receptacle, and got to replace that because I had an entire rack of equipment go dark the other day. So, but yeah, a lot of people don't like to talk about anxiety or some of the other things because there's some stigmas that go along with that. But I think if we don't talk about these kinds of things, that they're only going to continue to get worse. And it's really nice to know that there are other people out there that deal with it. And that when other people see you as a creator and you're dealing with it, there's people can reach out and you can have conversations and things like that. And I can tell I'm watching my concurrent viewers drop. So even me just talking about it, people are like, peace out. They don't want to hear it, so it's interesting, and if you can't take the content creator and everything, I mean, even big content creators like Linus had a video a couple of years ago where it was just him and the headphones and the microphone, and he was very honest, and he talked about, some of the same things. But, if we can't have these conversations, we're going to continue to struggle as a collective. And so, they say that, Instagram is life through a filter, and that's what a lot of the social media is. And, people don't want to see a content creator having a bad day or having a struggle or being a real person. They only want the highlights. Well, that in itself causes all kinds of issues. So I'm going to get off that soapbox because that's something that all content creators have to deal with. And I know it takes its toll on most of them. And you can see there, Tech for Fun, that's Joe Trelli. And he says that's why he's not a content creator anymore. So, it's definitely interesting. And Ryan says, whatever video you put out, I'm sure your viewer base will appreciate it. And I appreciate that, Ryan. So, and then TVJ says, I've basically decided to just do live streams. It's more fun and interactive. Yeah, and we're going to, one thing that I enjoy is Zoom meetings and the one-on-one trainings. And so we're going to start really concentrating on that besides our in-person Grandstream certifications. We are going to start doing a lot more training to empower other people. And if people want to take what we teach them and become a content creator, and I'm not going to teach content creation, I'm teaching technical things, right? So like I'm preparing a Zoom 2-day Synology training, and maybe somebody will come out of that and want to be a content creator. That's absolutely great. This, being a content creator it's a fairly young industry, and there's room for all kinds of people. So bring it on. All right. So off that soapbox, let's talk about some of the routers that I've got over here. And I have been told that as soon as the Grandstream switches are out, and we'll have them in my hands. So I'm hoping that they stay true to that. But here's the first router that Grandstream sent me. And we've been talking about these and doing, we've done some overviews on the internet. And this is the GWN7052. So they've got 2 new routers. There could be more on the horizon. I don't know. And this one comes in a flat box. And when we open it up, it is the GWN7052. Now, these routers, I think, are going to have different, definitely different target audiences. And the reason that I say that, so this is the GWN7052, and it's not going to end up back in the, plastic the same way. So let's not even pretend that it is. This is not Wi-Fi 6, right? So this is only Wi-Fi 5. On the back, you can see we've got a WAN port, 4 LAN ports. We've got a USB, power reset. And on the bottom, I mean, this is a beautifully designed device. All the venting we've got down here. We've got our rubber feet for setting it on a table. And then we can mount it on a wall here, or some sort of a board, so you can imagine. And hell, maybe maybe that's what's going to go behind me, access points and routers and stuff. But I would think that not being Wi-Fi 6, this is probably going to be And I think they do market it towards small office, home office. So we're going to do a full setup on this. This thing is freaking sleek. I mean, it's a lot thinner than I thought it was, right? So this is the 7052. Now, this is manageable via GWN.cloud. There's more integration coming. There's some light integration, I think, right now. But it's supposed to be fully managed through GWN.cloud, GWN.manager. It can also manage access points. But the nice thing about these is the price point on these. And if Tony was here, I think he could tell me, because we kind of chatted about this morning, because Tony just released his 7062 video. So this video coming, hopefully this week. The other router that I've got here. All right, real quick, over to the comments. Tesso, hello. After Dark says, I backed away from streaming because I did not have enough time in the day to do it. Yep. Systech 911 says, can't please everyone. I believe that. Ryan Sharp says, any Unify training coming up? Yes, so my Unify training, you don't get the certification, but people have been asking for a lot of Unify training. That one is probably going to have to be in person, because there's a lot more to that than the Synology stuff. So Gibby says, does it feel pretty light in weight? I think that router is actually lighter than my Pixel 6 cell phone, and I'm not even exaggerating that, Gibby. So yeah, it is pretty light. And then Gibby just brought up the 7062. So you've seen me teasing this for months, because I had this, was part of the beta club for this router. So this is the 7062. Now, this is a little bit of a beefier router. You've got your LAN, 4 WANs, but you can also have dual WAN. You got your USB. Power's on the bottom. Power cord sneaks through this thing that looks like it holds a handset cord. Wonder where they got that design. And then it's Wi-Fi 6. So it can also manage APs, managed by GWN.cloud. So I'm super excited about these. I actually have, believe it or not, I have a customer. They're a medical customer. I can't tell you their name. I'm under a NDA, BAA, but they have 3 locations. And they initially came in for a consult on voice over IP. Well, we found out that their network was not really ready for voice. So what we've started doing, and if you resell VoIP and you don't do this, I think it's a great idea, at least something that you should talk about. We are doing a network readiness assessment before we will sell you VoIP, right? So you have to tell us about your network. We ask questions about VLANs and equipment and quality of service and all those things. And if your network doesn't meet our requirements, we will not install. We won't install voice in your network. We're at a point where equipment is inexpensive enough that your network should be able to be set up properly for voice. And if you don't want to do that, then we don't want to deploy a system, because what happens is these systems get deployed. They don't get deployed in a network that's ready for VoIP. There's all kinds of issues. And then people complain and they say it's the phone system's problem. They say it's our problem. And so we've run into that one too many times. And so now there is a voice over IP network assessment. So this customer came to us. We were working on their voice. We're like, hey, these networks really need to be upgraded. They said, okay, what do we need to do? They want VPNs between the sites. So I actually have 3 of these sitting in the other room, along with TP-Link switches and Grandstream GWN7052 APs, and we are redoing all 3 sites. So we're going to be doing site-to-site VPN, hub and spoke with this. Once we get the networks deployed, which will be in the next 2 weeks, then we will go in and make a bunch of changes to their voice over IP system. So we are completely redoing their networks with Grandstream and TP-Link. Now, I really wish that I had Grandstream switches. All my investigation says they are basically beta testing these in I think Vietnam. I don't know if that's true, but you can apparently buy them there. So I don't know if they went to that market first and then they're coming here, but it appears that if you're there, you can already buy the switches. Now, maybe I don't understand the internet and I read it wrong. Could be. But this could have been our first network where everything was Grandstream, right? So there's no vendors pointing at each other. It's all Grandstream. That is coming very, very soon. I've held off on making a couple of videos because I'm waiting for those switches, right? So we'll see what happens. If you didn't watch my last video about my 6 takeaways that I'm super excited about for Synology in the upcoming year, go back and check that out. Go check out the Synology 2023 and beyond. I saw another YouTuber did a review on it, and their review's like 30 minutes, and the entire video from Synology is only 54 minutes, and I was like, why don't you just spend the extra 20 minutes and get it from the horse's mouth, right? But anyway, I think my video is like 5-6 minutes long, but there's 6 super duper things I'm excited about. So lots of good stuff coming with Synology. I did ask, they do not have switches coming out. They do not have Ethernet switches coming out. Kind of is what it is. But the last router that I've got here that I'm going to show you, this is that new Grandstream. This is the new Synology WRX560. I also have a DS923, and I've asked them if I can get into beta 7.2 DSM because that's where a lot of the new changes are coming. Synology, here's what I'm going to say. It will not surprise me if Synology is acquired by a Microsoft or an Oracle or an AWS, or an Amazon or a Microsoft, you name a vendor, because holy smokes, Synology is challenging them in the biggest ways, and the software is easy, it's affordable. And one of the themes throughout the 2023 presentation is they want to bring these high-end enterprise features while staying cost-conscious. And when they do that, they are going to get into the pockets of these big providers. And I think they're going to be ripe for an acquisition based on the software. You know, the feature to price ratio that Synology is bringing, they are ripe for acquisition. And if somebody spent $1 billion or $2 billion on Synology, it wouldn't surprise me. And then if you haven't used Synology, when you activate some of these features that are free, that normally you're going to pay literally tens of thousands of dollars for. We were paying tens of thousands of dollars for Veeam licensing. Active Backup for Business came out. We dumped Veeam, and it's a free backup solution as long as you buy the hardware, right? Well, anyone who's ever installed, backup, Active Backup for Business, if you've installed the router licensing, you know that these software applications are already primed to be able to take payment. In fact, the router licensing, you used to have to buy that. You could buy it instantly right from inside of the router and activate it. Well, now guess what? It's a free activation. So Synology at will has the ability to turn on and off payments. And if you've been installing Active Backup for Business, you know you have to activate it through your Synology portal, right? So what is to keep somebody from buying them and saying, okay, flip the switch, and now you're going to charge $1,500 per device for license for this, right? Now, they'll lose a lot of customers, maybe, depending on the price if that happens. But Synology is very smart, and they've been building that out in the background. And I'll be honest with you, would I pay a fee for Active Backup for Business? I would. If it approached Veeam pricing, I'd probably have to look at that again, because while Synology support has gotten better, they do have a phone number that you can call, and while the email support has gotten a little better, it's still not the type of support that you pay for with Veeam, right? So there's pros and cons to everything, right? You have to be aware enough of be able to make a list of these things and then put your risk acceptance level on the table and make a financial decision that also has the risk factors that you can afford to take, right? And a lot of people don't do that. So that is something that you should definitely get ready to be prepared to do. Think a little critically about these things. Gibby says the 7062 reminds me of the Apple Extreme. It does, and it actually looks like a Velo router too. Dave Robertson says, do you have a date for the Grandstream switches in the U.S.? So Brian keeps telling me soon, and then in a newsletter that was released by Kim Gunn, which if you are on the Grandstream mailing list, you know that you receive monthly emails from Kim Gunn. The email from Kim says that they're going to be available in the United States in November, Dave. So we'll see, because I haven't even heard of beta units being available. So Dexter says, I saw that Ubiquiti has added UISP in front of the name of Edge Switch devices. UISP Edge Switch 16XG. Any word when they will be available? Dexter, I have not seen that. That's interesting. So I'm assuming that there's going to be a firmware upgrade for those devices that will enable that. So we'll have to see. Ryan, I'm not sure what you're talking about affordable until you want to connect more than one camera. Are you talking about Synology? Because Surveillance Station, you get 2 cameras for free, and then you pay a licensing fee per camera, which when you can attach basically any camera, even if it only gives you an RTSP stream, it's actually pretty damn affordable. All right, so let's take a look at what this WRX560 router looks like. Open it up. Look at Synology bringing the swag. Comes in this nice... this is not a bottle of Crown Royal, for those of you wondering. This is a router. And it's got this really nice printed protective fabric bag. Excuse me. Good morning, John. So yeah, dollar for dollar, my opinion, Surveillance Station is it's one of those things that for what you pay for it, it brings some of the best functionality. It's also scalable. So don't bring Blue Iris, don't bring a knife to a gunfight. Blue Iris, loses the Synology Surveillance Station, almost every time. And here is the router, the WRX560. So I saw a lot of yeah, it does smell good. There was a lot of misconception, right? So when they said they were going to send this to me, I Googled the model number. And apparently this is what people thought that the other router was going to be, and that Synology changed the name. Well, no, they didn't. This is a very pleasant looking router. You've got your WPS. You can actually turn, there's a Wi-Fi button. You can actually turn Wi-Fi on and off, apparently, with this button. I would guess that's what it's for. There's a WPS button on the back. So you've got a 2.5 gig port on this as well. You've got all of your LAN ports, WAN ports, reset, power. Really, this is meant to be set upright, like a vase. Very fancy router. You can see all of the venting. And I don't know if you can see this, but this is actually interesting to me, right? So this is one of those little interesting things. So see the color of the ports? This is not just the face. Look at this. If you can see in there, look at that. The entire plastic block of those ports is actually the same color as the face, that's pretty awesome. And then on the front, it's got 3 status lights, right? So it's got a blinking status, it's got a Wi-Fi, and a WAN. So it's laid out physically different, but it runs the same software. And I think that it's going to make an excellent addition. I'm going to fire it up. You're obviously going to see a video on it. They just sent a standard patch cable. I didn't know if they'd send something a little nicer since they were trying to go with a different look. It is kind of nice that these manufacturers are all trying to make things that are a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. But yeah, we're going to fire this up too. And we're going to talk about what routers we use for what purposes as well. Because do I deploy every router you see here and use it? Absolutely. Absolutely. So, and when people start talking about like how the edge router is lagging behind and it doesn't do IDS, IPS, True statements, but do you know what the edge router does that a USG and a UXG and a UDM Pro and a UD Wall and a UD this and a UD that doesn't do? Routes packets like they're on fire if you're using it as a router, right? So that's where the advantage of the edge router comes in. I've got two dissimilar networks. I need to run BGP, IBGP, OSPF, all these dynamic routing protocols that everybody's so excited about that they always have to point out that these other devices don't do. The edge router does them, and it does it very well, very quickly, very, very efficiently, right? So let's see. Synology whiskey. I'd buy a bottle. Gibby says, the only wish is that with Grandstream routers, you have more options for VPN like WireGuard. Yeah, and I think as long as more people start going to the forum over there and requesting those kinds of things, that they will do that. But people have got to go request it. All right, so Shampasta says, nothing better than the smell of new IT equipment. Yeah, it does have a really, like, for some reason, soothing smell. And I don't know if Joe is still listening, but I'm going to go. That's for you, Joe. Little network ASMR this morning. Myron says, on the topic of surveillance station, how effective would you say it is in terms of monitoring multiple external locations? Well, that depends, Myron. So if I had multiple external locations, I wouldn't probably, I'm going to do a couple things, right? The design's going to depend on the network. But a quick design off the top of my head is I'm going to have a central server, a central Synology, and then I'm going to have at my two remote sites other smaller, like maybe like 218s or 220s. Going to throw my cameras on there. I'm probably going to try to do edge recording by cameras that can do that, so that if somebody steals the NVR, I've still got footage on the cameras. But when you get into Synology surveillance station, part of the awesome thing about it is that it scales, right? So you can manage all of your cameras across all locations, assign permissions from one single point, and it ties into Active Directory or LDAP, right? Any service that you've got. And so now you truly start tapping into the power of this centralized system. Prav says, very effective, just depends on your internet connection. We've got it across a few different sites with more than 20 cams at a few. So, Tim, actually, if you all are familiar with Tim, we put in a huge rack station. They've got 150 cameras on a surveillance station installation, and it replaced a Unify video. And so as his cameras are dying, he's putting OnVIF compatible cameras in. He's actually looking now at the Synology cameras that are coming out next year because they're going to do edge recording. They're going to do AI at the edge and all these things. But, it is definitely scalable. I've got dozens of sites, dozens of customers that run it, and it works fantastically. Is that a word? It's called edge router, not edge firewall. So that's the thing, right? So like what a lot of these routers have done is we've obscured, right? So a router is actually different than a firewall, and so, but a lot of these devices can do all of it. So it really obscures that. But when you start looking at larger deployments, you have routers that don't do masquerading and firewalling and NAT, right? Because NAT's different than firewalling. NAT's not a firewall. So, for smaller sites, it makes sense sometimes to cram all these into one box. But yeah, then there becomes a lot of confusion about what's doing what, where it's doing it, why it's doing it, right? So After Dark says routers route. That's all they should do. I agree. But in a small network, a Soho shop, can you justify building out an infrastructure network at the top? And it gets dicey, right? Now, don't get me wrong. I have doctors and dentists that are customers that have done that in their homes. Those customers are few and far in between. Joe's going to go clean up. All right, I'll let you know before the ASMR next time. Dave, if you email me, I'll get that model number from Tim for you. Sean says, we had been a Synology surveillance station with 220 retail stores, but a new org came in and bought us, and we were going to Hikvision DVRs. So it's funny that you say Hikvision, because you can tell when you watch the Synology presentation and they talk about one of the reasons that they are creating their own cameras. They say a lot of cameras, the firmware's sketchy. They come, like they give some reasons, and anyone who deals with surveillance and security and things like that, when vendors start saying shady firmware, Hikvision comes to mind, Dawa comes to mind. So it's interesting. So, After Dark, this is one of these things. After Dark says, in a small network, it's called an internet gateway, not a router. This is one of these things. We could dice up semantics all day long. And you might call it that, and the IT guy down the road is going to just call it a router, and the home user is just going to call it a router. And their IT department, when they're troubleshooting their work from home people, are going to tell them to reset their routers. When they call their ISP, the ISP is not going to tell them to reset their internet gateway, because to them, the internet gateway is the device that the company installed, right? They're going to tell them to reboot their router. So when we get into semantics, it just gets messy. But all right, well, I want to thank you all for hanging out with me a little bit here this morning. I've got to get ready. I've got to get my office clean. Like heading into November and December, like wanting to pump out the quantity of these videos, I've got to have a day, maybe I'll do it tomorrow, where I just clean and get rid of the cardboard and rearrange and just feel a little differently in here, put some things up on the wall behind me, and we'll see how it goes. But I want to thank you for spending a little bit of your Saturday morning with me. If you've got questions, remember, you can always reach out at williehowe.com. If you're bored, excited, want to say whatever, I read all the emails as long as they aren't spam. So, yeah. Spam's been picking up lately too. But, like I said, I want to thank you all for being here. Without all of you, this doesn't exist, right? So, I'm Willie. Once again, thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next video.